question. 4 letters, H, E, N, T. Everybody's got it? That's the answer to every question. I got the question. The first Anglo-language government document in the 13 original colonies was at Williamsburg, Virginia, and it said, all householders shall make trial of the seeds of the plant in springing. Got the idea? We don't have the time. I can keep it up for any time. You want another one? Yeah. How about if you're from Vermont? Anybody from Vermont? Well, that's a good one. I pulled one that nobody's here. Every 3rd grader in Vermont knows that 2 sharp boys at the founding, the Fairbanks brothers, were asked by a mill owner to devise a way to stop these Connecticut Yankee Valley farmers from bringing their hemp up wet from the fields and it drying out in his yard. You know what I mean, Yankees? And they invented Fairbanks Morris invented the platform scale. You could weigh the whole wagon full or the whole wagon empty. And it changed the cartage industry everywhere because the locks in the Panama and the Suez Canal are weighed the same way. And the rest of you are in physics and everything. So every time that you get to talk about something that has a historical reference about this plant, you realize that the early forefathers and the society that lived here knew hemp and grew it. It was part of the culture. And consequently, until 55 years ago, nobody made a big thing out of it. Until Herer and brought about reefer madness to keep 226 T-men from the Treasury Department under Andrew Mellon busy for the rest of their lives with a scheme called the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. Until Jack got this book together, he and I were part of an elite bunch that couldn't get along with anybody on the marijuana movement. Because we always believed that John Kaplan was right in 1970 when he wrote that the marijuana laws will change when there's so many people that smoke pot, just like the adultery laws then as the sexual revolution was happening, would be such that they wouldn't get prosecuted. Or that there'd be so many of them, they would vote either for a change of office or a change in the law. And as more and more people stopped smoking pot and enjoying it more than anything else that they tried, there was a cultural revolution going on. There were young people that were getting involved in civil rights, in the environment, in conflict resolution. And they weren't considered odd or weird or off the wall. But they certainly were a threat. Harry Anslinger said in an interview right here in 1968 in a magazine downtown called it Cap and Gown, that the only persons he ever feared were the hippies. You know what the hippie sacraments are. Mushrooms, peyote, LSD, and lots of ganj. And now that it's a $50 billion a year domestic industry supplying ourselves with a trust network that brings you uniform quality product available to your door, that everybody wants seeds of, with more and more people growing it at home for their own private consumption and that of their friends. The price is skyrocketing. It seems to me that the time has come that a sufficient amount of students who get tired of it will give us that 1 to 3% we never had before to tilt this thing in our direction. It's your Constitution, it's your Bill of Rights that's being protected by these events. I'm so proud that so many of you came out this year, and I did smell a little reefer out there. And that class got the message all over campus. And I understand we got good media tonight. I haven't seen it, but People have already told me that it sounded good on the TV for the 6 o'clock news. So my hat's off to you. You really made it happen. It gives me great, great pleasure to introduce the next speaker. Because in 1972, we were both volunteers for the California Marijuana Initiative, Proposition 19. That except for the Reagan advertising agency in San Francisco spending $900,000 in the last 6 weeks of the campaign, we would have won it in spite of McGovern's downfall against Nixon in California, because the Harris poll had already said that 3-2 Californians favored Proposition 19. We never got a chance again. As a political activist, I've been involved in state after state getting petitions out there on the shopping malls and what. The guy who's coming on now has done it all. Shopping malls, hotels, motels, on the road, college campuses, everywhere. And in the last 5 years, he's probably spoken to more people, Grateful Dead tours, etc., about the uses of hemp and its historical reference, and the social impact of the reefer madness that came out of Pennsylvania in 1960. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. JackHerer.
One of the things I'm going to ask you when I'm done here today is to seriously think about no matter what goes on in your life, what future, whether you become a doctor, lawyer, builder, contractor, engineer, whatever profession you go into, that you keep in mind that the information that we're about to give you and the chance that you have all your life to put an end to this horseshit called marijuana or hemp laws forever is going to be lie with each one of you. 18 years ago, a fellow named Captain Ed got me involved in the hemp movement. He owned a head shop in California called Heads and Highs. And I wandered in there after writing a book called Grass, which was the great revolutionary American standard system for assessing the quality of marijuana on the 1 to 10 scale for determining what you had and where you were at. And I sold about 35,000 copies of the book around the United States. It was a pretty good bestseller. I didn't know the first word about hemp. I'd grown up, I was 33 years old when I walked into that store. I'd been 30 years old when I smoked my first joint. I had never done an illegal thing in my life that I know of, other than maybe run a light, or maybe to pay $10 less than my taxes for a year. I had just simply been a businessman. I'd been a sign salesman. I owned my own sign company, my own sign lighting maintenance company, and got into an argument with my dope dealer. First of all, I'll tell you, a girl got me stoned because she felt sorry for me. She said I was a nice guy, but I was really, really square. I was 30 years old, and I didn't think I was very square. So she said, like, have you ever smoked marijuana? I said, well, that's what you do. I smoked tobacco. Why did I smoke marijuana? I drink. She said, you really need to relax. And she got me stoned. First 2 or 3 times, nothing happened. About the 3rd time I came over, 4th time, she was kind of explaining, she'd gone out and bought something she called Acapulco Gold. And she said, I want you to sit there and smoke all these. And she rolled up a bunch of joints. And I wasn't afraid anymore because I knew I was too good for this. So joint after joint after joint. I got flips right? Left hand for my right. She put earphones on me. She put earphones on me, and I heard music in color. I had heard music more exquisitely than I'd ever heard before in my life. And I was 30 years old, and I never even dreamed that music could have this type of intensity and this type of feeling. And it was 1969, I was 30 years old, and I was listening to it. I could hear the horns, the music coming out, dance through my mind, my ears and my head, all the different notes and all the different instruments. And I loved it. She took me into the bedroom and we made love, and I learned, literally, about making love that night. I never really knew to enjoy another human being at that intensity, at that sincerity, or that touch. It was the most exquisite, most love-filled night of my life.